So, if we are to get started, we'll start off with Jenny, who will be talking us through junior science. Take it away.
Thanks, Minnie. So, as mentioned, my name's Jenny, and I'll be talking through the junior sciences component. I'll just start sharing my screen in a quick second. Let me know if you can't. Yep. Can I just get like a thumbs up? Yep, cool. Thank you. Awesome. Right, start presenting there. So I'm going to be talking through the junior sciences segment for this webinar. And in particular, I'll be focusing on how we at Toplogic as well can help you through your journey throughout your junior sciences course from year 7 all the way until year 10. So just a little bit of intro just about me before we get started. I am a graduate of James Roos Agricultural High School. I graduated last year in the class of 2022. I got a 99.95 ATAR and I state ranked 10th in physics. So the subjects that I chose for my HSC in regards with science is chemistry and physics. So as you know, there are mandatory science classes all the way up until year 10. And when it came to the subject selection in year 11 and 12, I chose chemistry and physics. And I do believe that choosing those subjects helped me quite a bit in achieving what I did in the very end of my HSC journey. Awesome. So before I get started with the actual sort of content with this webinar, I just want to get you guys to start thinking about how science is really all around in the world around us, right? It's basically everywhere. So if you look at the image at the top left, some of you guys might be familiar with this already. This is an algae that is growing inside a fungus with what's called a symbiotic relationship. So this lichen, what's really special about it is that the algae depends on the fungus for protection, and in return, the fungus depends on the algae for food. And it's that relationship between those two organisms that allows it to thrive. And that's just a cool sort of application of science, if you will, in what we can see in the world around us. And the second image there on the screen, you might be familiar with this as well. It's quite a common experiment. You can see that it's a tank of still water, but you can see the movement of red dye from that bottom of that container. And the science behind that is that it's actually not still water, right? So what's happening there is that the mug in the very middle is warmer than the two mugs around it. And because of that, we have something called heating by convection currents, and that allows for the movement of water within that still tank, even though nothing really seems to be going on the surface level there. So those are just two interesting examples of science. Hopefully that's sort of captured your interest a little bit, and hopefully that makes you want to learn more about sciences. So looking at junior sciences and breaking that down, what does it actually encompass? Well, we have 5 sort of broad subjects that you will be focusing on throughout your junior years. So these are just shown on the screen. We have physics, we have chemistry, we have biology, we have earth and environmental sciences, and we also have space sciences there. So with our junior science courses, it's a little bit different in that you don't actually, when you enter the course or when you have a science class, it's not immediately distinguished between, okay, physics, chemistry, and biology. You have sort of like this meshwork of different focuses that you will go throughout the terms, and that allows you for a more broader understanding of science and how that's relevant to the classes that you'll pick later on in your senior school. Cool. So for those students who are extra keen, There are also junior science competitions that you can participate in school. So these are just some things that you can look out for. So the ones that are usually offered by schools include Big Science and ICAS Science. So those are your science competitions that really rely on your working scientifically skills. They don't tend to require any background knowledge. What you need for those competitions is to go in with a good set of working scientifically skills. So that's things just like being able to interpret a graph, being able to identify, for example, the independent variable in an experiment, the dependent variable, the control, things like that, right? Things that apply broadly to science. And then we also have our junior science Olympiads. So this will include our physics, chemistry, biology, and also our earth and environmental Olympiads. So these are competitions which you can undergo training for, I believe. Some schools do offer that. And at the very end, there will be an exam where you can sit, and it works like most other competitions. They will score you, they will rank you, and if you do exceptional, you can progress on to the next stage, which is sort of like this Olympiad camp, where you do get to meet other really high-performing students, and you get to learn more about the course, essentially. So that's always been known to be a really unique experience and one that's quite prestigious. So if you guys are keen, I would encourage you guys to look out for that as well. And just drawing this back to the topic of junior sciences in school. So not only are these competitions relevant because of personal interest, if you do study for these, you will eventually, those skills will eventually transfer to your school classes, your main class marks, and just your normal schoolwork as well. So it's sort of this almost like a mutually beneficial cycle there, where if you're good at science, you will excel at these competitions. And if you do extension work within these competitions, it will also help you out with school. Okay, and the next slide here, I've just got a quick, really one short sentence. And the reason why I want to emphasize this is because as a student, I'm sure we have students from varying grades right now, but if you are in the lower grades, so if you're in year 8, year 7, maybe even, you might be thinking there, you might be sitting there thinking, well, why should I care? My HSC is eons away. I don't need to start preparing now. Well, the reason why I always suggest, my advice to everyone is always to start preparing early, even is because starting early and developing that interest in science is something that takes quite a long time. So say for me as a student, I was quite interested in junior sciences from the really beginning. And I think that was always a great motivator in me, for me when it came to my senior studies, when it came up to the HSC year. So if you start early with your junior sciences, you can sort of hopefully develop that interest in it. And when you have that interest in the subject itself, it will motivate you to do your best, no matter what year you're in. It'll help you prevent burnout if you are actually genuinely interested in the things that you're learning. For example, I've always loved learning physics and science, whether it was like in year 8 or year 9 or year 12. So that really helped me with my studies. And yeah, as said on the slide, the best and easiest way to succeed in your studies is to be interested in them. So I would suggest all of you guys to start paying attention to your junior science classes and hopefully developing that interest to set a good foundation for your year 11 and 12 studies. Right, and then now just looking a little bit about how that transition between junior to senior sciences really works. So this is just a snippet taken from the NESA syllabus. As you can see, from years 7 to 10, we have our mandatory science classes, and that, as mentioned previously, has those 5 different broad categories. Going to years 11 and 12, you will have the opportunity to choose elective studies. So that is your biology focused biology focused unit, your chemistry unit or your physics unit, and your earth and environmental science if your school does offer that as well. So the things that we learn in junior sciences really does set a foundation for those senior studies as well. So these are just some brief dot points, brief ways in which they do that. So firstly is your working scientifically skills. As mentioned previously, these skills, not only will they help you with your senior studies, they help you with your competitions, and they will basically help you out no matter what science you are studying, because it's broad and it encompasses everything, and it's relevant across all your different subjects. And your junior sciences form the foundational skills of year 11 and 12 sciences. So there are bits of assumed knowledge. For example, in the case of chemistry, they will assume that going into year 11, you know how to sort of, you know how ionic bonds work, or you know how to sort of balance the number of different constituent anions and cations within that ionic compound. Right, things like that, really simple things. It's good to start learning in years 10, maybe 9, so that you have that good foundation when you go into senior science. And what you find as well with the junior science course is that depending on which school you go to, some of the syllabus in year 10 will actually cover year 11 and year 12 content, but just watered down at a more simple level. So for example, in year 10, I would learn space science with, for example, the life cycle of stars. So how, what are nebulas, how do stars form, what makes a black hole, and how stars turn into red giants, for example. You repeat the same content from year 10 in year 12 once again. So if you did pay attention in year 10, which I did for that part and that section, it will come of a great help to you when it comes to year 12 and you're stressed and you're overwhelmed with a lot of different things. It's good to see familiar content that you already know quite well. So how can we help at Toplogic with this? So we actually do offer courses from years 8 to 10 for junior sciences, and these classes will cover theoretical content to cover your base sort of knowledge, and we're also looking to bring in small in-class experiments that will supplement that learning, so hopefully you guys will get the chance to do some hands-on work as well. And down here, I've just attached a couple of excerpts from the lessons, and I was going to play them for the webinar, but can I just get how are we going for time-wise? Yes, no.
I think it should be okay if you played maybe one. We can come back to it at the end if anyone else is interested, but maybe just stick to one for now.
Okay. So I don't know why, but I can't seem to hear. I can see your lips moving, but the sound is not coming through my AirPods. That is okay. I'm gonna take that as a okay. Go ahead. Yep. Thanks, Karui. I'll just play one of the clips because I do think I spoke for a little longer than I intended to. So let's just bear with me for a second. Okay, so this is a clip from one of our year 10 physics classes, and it's taught by Mr. Liu.
Let's say you're in like a space station and you want to get like a bowling ball. You want to like move a bowling ball from one side of the room to the other versus like moving an egg from one side of the room to the other. Like, would it be like significantly harder to move the egg or the bowling ball, or like would it actually be the same? Cecilia, any thoughts? Be the same? Okay, so no, it would actually be like more difficult to move the bowling ball, even though there is no gravity. And this is because mass isn't only important due to gravity, right? It's also important whenever you try to accelerate something. So even in outer space, a smaller mass would be easier to accelerate than a larger mass, even if it's weightless. And this is because mass is an inherent property of an object, and it's a property no matter where the object is. So the mass of an object is constant no matter what planet it's on. So you know how like things are lighter on the moon and everything, but when you're on the moon, like your mass stays the same, right? If you move from the Earth to the moon, your mass stays the same. It's only the weight force that changes, right? So that's just something to know, like something to note down, that the mass of an object is constant as long as like no bits and pieces fall out of it. However, the weight force is the only thing that changes. So in outer space, the weight force is 0, right? But the mass is still relevant in some cases. So let's say I apply a force of, I don't know, 40 newtons on this ball. Oh, that was too fast. Let's undo that. Oh dear. So, I don't know, 15 newtons versus 15 newtons here. Yeah, that was much faster, right? So same force, two objects, the smaller one goes faster, even though we're in outer space. Yeah. Yep, so an object's mass is independent of its surrounding gravitational conditions, so it doesn't matter if you're in deep space or on Earth, on Jupiter, on Pluto, your mass still remains the same. So yeah, getting hit by a bowling ball in space is worse than getting hit by an egg, even though they weigh the same, right? So there's a difference between weight and mass. Weight is the magnitude of the force due to gravity, and mass is the inertia of the object itself. Any questions about mass and stuff?
Right. So hopefully that was insightful for everyone. So that's just sort of an example of what some of our lessons would look like. Our tutors do try to include different simulations within class just to make it easier for students to sort of visualize and conceptualize different things. So yep, hopefully that helped. And if you guys ever have any questions either regarding Toplogic Sciences, Toplogic Junior Sciences, or just study in general, you can also ask through this webinar at the very end as well, and I'll get to answering them then. So that's all I had to say. Minnie, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. That was excellent. So now we're moving on from junior science, so our older students and junior students of what to expect in the future. But our older students, I'll be handing over to Karui to talk us through the HSC science courses.
Thank you, Minnie. I'll just share my screen now. So good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you guys to our seminar. My name is Karui, and I'll be walking you through what science will be like at Toplogic. So first, a little bit about me. I graduated in 2022 from James Roos. I placed 9th in the state for chemistry as an accelerated student with a full 100 out of 100 exam mark. And I also got a bronze medal at the 54th International Chemistry Olympiad. So first, table of contents. I'll first be walking you through some key concepts from HSC modules 1 to 8, and then I'll walk you guys through our curriculum design and its unique advantages. Next, we'll explore the connection between HSC and Junior Science/Olympiad before talking about our teaching method, so how we'll leverage a strong foundation for HSC success. So first, some key concepts from the HSC syllabus. In chemistry, we'll begin with Module 1, Structure and Properties of Matter. So we'll be looking at the atom. And then in Module 2, that's where you'll really get introduced to the idea of moles and then calculations in chemistry. Then Module 3, you'll be looking at chemistry properties. And Module 4, how those properties influence reactions. So one thing to note is that the Year 12 course really has the Year 11 course as its foundation. So for example, some content in Module 4, such as enthalpy change and entropy, will determine equilibrium reactions in Module 5. So Module 5, we'll be looking at equilibrium and acid reactions, followed by acid-base reactions in Module 6, and then organic chemistry in Module 7, and then Module 8 is really about chemistry in industry. And then also a brief overview of physics. So Module 1 is kinematics, Module 2 is dynamics, Module 3 is waves and thermodynamics, Module 4 is electricity and magnetism, so things like circuits. Module 5 is advanced mechanics, so like uniform circular motion. Module 6 is electromagnetism, so looking at Maxwell's laws. And then Module 7 is the nature of light, and Module 8 is from the universe to the atom, so things like special relativity. Cool. So people often ask me, what are some tips for studying science? And one thing that I always say is, and I think Jenny said this as well, is that you need to remember that science is inherently interesting, right? So people find chemistry and physics difficult, things that they find frustrating. So it's important to find ways to motivate yourself so that you can keep trying, keep at it, and keep improving. So one way that students can really foster their interest in the subject is to link whatever they learn in class to whatever is actually happening in the real world and actually is having an impact right now. So one example is quantum computers, right? So the quantum computers, they harness the power of quantum mechanics, right? Things like superposition, entanglement, and it's linked to Year 11, Module 4, so electrical circuits, and also the quantum mechanical nature of the atom, which is covered in Module 8. And similarly for chemistry, we have the hepatitis C virus over here, which was recently cured through a combination of antiviral drugs, which would have been impossible without the knowledge of organic chemistry covered in Module 7. So again, this part about building interest will really help you in your science journey. So talking a little bit more about the curriculum. So as I said before, modules 1 to 4 here is going to be assumed knowledge for module 12. So in HSC, questions can kind of draw on these modules in terms of problem solving questions. So using the foundations of year 11 in year 12. And then one thing you'll notice at the center is working scientifically, right? So that's at the core of both year 11 and year 12. And if you see, there's a lot of hours allocated to working scientifically, including depth studies. So working scientifically skills are things like practical investigations, data analysis, and problem solving. And they're supposed to be developed through all stages of the course, and they'll definitely be assessed in your formal assessments and in your depth study as well. So we found that students are often unsure of how to approach or even study for a working scientifically exam, which is why the Toplogic course has been structured with this in mind. So we introduce these skills, these working scientifically skills, with a dedicated lesson at the start of year 11. And then we'll continually develop these skills through our content. And then this will force students to extend themselves beyond their knowledge and their understanding to really improve their working scientifically skills. And then one more thing, the curriculum at Toplogic is slightly offset from the school, as you can see, right? So this means that we'll cover module 1 and 2 before the school has even covered module 1. So the HSC course is going to be accelerated. And therefore, the students can use their time in school, in class, to really consolidate their understanding and focus on asking teachers questions. And even more importantly, they'll have already seen the content beforehand in each module and will have seen all the problems beforehand as well. So the key benefit about this is often some people finish the HSC and then they wish they had another chance, another go at it. So imagine you doing the whole course, the whole HSC course, like module 4, one time, making your mistakes, doing your assessments, and getting a mark, and then getting the chance to redo it again in school, but this time it actually counts. So obviously students will have a massive advantage because they've already seen the concept before, they've already made the common mistakes, and then learned from them. So it's kind of like a hack that they get a second try at whatever module they get. So that's really the unique advantage of doing the accelerated curriculum at Toplogic. And also, HSC trials are usually in the weeks 3 and 4 of term 3. So over here. So by then, we'll have already covered all the content and we can focus solely on revision before their trials. So I'll just end the curriculum part with a short quote, which is that a year from now, you'll wish you had started today. And certainly, when you're preparing for your first HSC exam, you'll wish that you had started a year ago. All right. So now I'll talk about junior science and the connections between junior science and Olympiad with the HSC syllabus. So I've highlighted here in red all of the overlap between the Olympiad chemistry course and all of the HSC content. So the big overarching idea is that the Olympiad course tends to introduce lots and lots of different concepts really broadly, and it will focus on problem solving and intuition, whereas HSC will dive much, much deeper into a specific topic. So I find that Olympiad serves to give students the big picture overview and concepts before the actual HSC itself. So you can see that in Olympiad, we'll introduce balancing chemical equations, limiting excess reagents, all of these calculations, and then also conceptual ideas such as the structure of the atom, intermolecular forces, and they will all come up again in HSC. So students who've done Olympiad before will get the chance to, really dive deeper and use the Olympiad knowledge for HSC success. And the same thing is true for physics as well. So you can see that in Physics Olympiad, Module 1 and Module 2 is all covered under Mechanics in Physics Olympiad. Module 4 and Module 6 is covered under electromagnetism. And then parts of waves and parts of thermodynamics is also covered in Olympiad Physics. So again, there's going to be significant overlap, and then students can use this knowledge for their HSC. So how teaching really works at Toplogic is that we will focus on giving students both the theoretical knowledge and the problem-solving skills to succeed. So they kind of both come in hand, right? So by theoretical knowledge, I mean that we will build a student's foundations, students' intuitive understanding of core concepts, and that will allow students to, tackle problems they've never seen before. But that's also only one part of the puzzle, right? The other part is the actual problem solving, the actual application of the knowledge to the question itself. So I'll quickly pause on this and take a look at this chemistry question and how you might answer it. So note that the question asks you to explain the patterns shown in the graph. So you don't need too much for this, just some pattern identification. All right, so what are some patterns that you might be able to see? Have a think. So again, you don't need any knowledge for this. You might be able to see that first. The boiling points are all increasing as I move from left to right, right? Okay. Yeah, increasing steadily. Yeah. All right, cool. So again, this is going to be focusing on applying knowledge, our problem-solving skills. And part of that is reading the question and kind of understanding the marker's intent. So we'll look at small things. For example, how many marks is the question? We'll see how number of marks in the question should be used to guide the expected length of our response. And also small things in the question, such as the plural over here, right? So it asks you for patterns, and it asks you to explain each one of them as well. So therefore, you need to identify 2 or more patterns and explain each one of them. So indeed, one pattern is that they are increasing steadily, but you can see that another pattern is the gap between them is decreasing while it's increasing. So having the conceptual knowledge is one thing, but also applying it to problem solving, knowing what to say is another. So this is a chemistry example, and the same thing is very much true for physics. So recently in the new syllabus, there has been a 9-mark response. 9 marks, so that's 9% of your exam, requiring both calculations and explanations every single year. So imagine a 9-mark question, something like this, right? And therefore, it's extremely important that you develop the skills on how to actually answer these problems. So it's good to know that if you might understand perfectly what's going on, but if you can't put it on paper and communicate it to the marker, then there's no point. Right. So definitely communicating your response logically and coherently is a skill. So we'll be looking at how we can plan our response, how we can use things like subheadings and dot points. Yes, dot points. You can use dot points in your response to make sure that your response is not only follows a logical structure, but is also really coherent and succinct, so the marker can look at it and just give it a tick. So this example over here is the 2020 HSC question. So again, this is what we really focus on, is that we give students both the theoretical knowledge and the problem-solving skills to succeed. And this is followed by some things, some exam mentality as well. So how to eliminate silly mistakes, and also exam preparation. So how to deal with exams such as time pressure, and how to avoid common mistakes like cramming. Cool. So through this is our teaching method. So our teaching method is really split into three things, right? So there's a focus on the environment, there's a focus on foundations and concepts, and there's a focus on feedback. So with the environment, we want to foster student collaboration with each other, right? We want this to be a comfortable learning environment. We want students to feel comfortable asking each other questions and asking the teacher questions as well. And then we'll be giving every student support and insight. So we want the teachers to act as sort of mentors and give tips on how they handle the exams themselves when they were in the students' shoes. So that's our comfortable teaching environment. But we'll also focus on the concepts and applications. So concepts would be your conceptual understanding, and the applications would be the application to the problem itself. So things like our problem-solving strategy. And finally, we'll give students regular feedback. So this is really important, that students know how they're going and where to improve. Right? So that will come in the form of regular weekly homework, as well as examinations. So we'll have midterm and end of term examinations. So finally, I want to end, So I'll quickly introduce our courses as well. So we offer HSC courses for chemistry and physics, as well as science courses for chemistry and physics, and also chemistry Olympiad and physics Olympiad, with the ability to also complete an intensive holiday training as well, those who need it. So really, we have courses targeted towards every level of students. And finally, I want to end by saying that we will cater to the students' needs. So our lessons will be recorded in high definition and for the students to review, watch again, anytime, anywhere. So this allows them to, look back on what content they need to learn again and, self-learning and revision. Our lessons will also be streamed online so that students have the opportunity to interact with the class from anywhere if they happen to need it. And also we'll have after hours help. So after class help, we'll have that through the Toplogic server. So that's where they have the chance to ask teachers questions directly and also, exchange insights, share resources, etc. So I want to end my talk by saying that I'm definitely sure that students of all abilities will have a comfortable and enriching experience at Toplogic.
Great. Thank you so much, Karui and Jenny. Now that we've finished our presentation, we'll move on to the Q&A. I've already received a couple questions that I can just answer off the bat, so I'll do that before we get to the questions specifically for Karui and Jenny. So I have a question about if Toplogic is based in Epping. Currently, our on-campus location is in Epping near the train station, so it's very convenient to get to. And we do currently offer face-to-face lessons on campus, but as Curry has said, we also offer live stream lessons if that is preferred. Now, for some questions directed towards Curry and Jenny, I have a question that asks, will they, meaning the student, get bored at school if they learn everything in advance?
Okay, I'll take this question. So personally, I also learnt the science content ahead of school. So I did accelerated learning at tutoring centers as well. And personally, my answer was just flat out no, not at all. Because learning it twice, it really helps you reinforce that knowledge. And what I found personally as well, the HSC syllabus is quite condensed and there's a lot of things that you'll be going through. And the time that they dedicate it to school is just not enough for you to actually be following along every step of the way and understanding everything in detail. So what I think what you should strive to do is that at tutoring, if you learn it accelerated, just gain that sort of broad sort of knowledge. And when you learn it for a second time at school, that gives you more opportunities to really delve deeper into specific things, focus on the details, ask questions with your teachers, and really look for and really investigate that concept in broader detail. So I don't think that you'll get bored purely because there is just too much to learn, especially if you don't learn it beforehand. So that would be my answer. Karui, do you have anything,
So I did a
thoughts?
bunch of accelerated as well. My answer is, again, same, you won't get bored. So when you're learning it again for the second time, instead of when you're learning that for the first time, you're trying to wrap your head around the concept, right? Trying to figure out how it all works. And then when you're learning it for the second time, that's when you can really focus on small details that help you maximize your marks, right? So things like writing states in chemical equations, asking teachers if whichever way they want to answer the question. The second time is really where you get that you jump from the 80% knowledge to the 99% knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for the answers, guys. Sorry, I'll just quickly rattle off some of these questions because they're very much admin questions. I have a question in the chat from Stanley. Is this directed for only year 11s and 12s? Now, you might have missed our first part of the lecture, and that's totally fine. We have recorded it, so you can check out our explanation of junior courses by Jenny after this webinar ends. And as to the question, will the homework be submitted and marked? Yes, we have a learning portal where students can submit weekly homework, and this is marked by their in-class teacher. I don't believe we have year 6 courses just yet. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny and Curry, I believe it's currently year 8 as our smallest year. I believe so. Okay. Yes. Our question, how big is the class? I believe our classes are relatively small. So I think 6 to 8 is our maximum. And our question from Ethan is, it's entirely based on science. Our science courses do generally just go through science, but we do have courses on maths and informatics even, if you're interested in that. And we have a newly launching course for junior English, which is just launched on our website now, I believe. And this question is for the tutors. Did you both attend coaching schools in senior high school years? Karui, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, personally, I did. I went to coaching for chemistry and physics. Yeah, so my experience is that obviously it does add another time commitment, and that's one thing that you'll find in year 12 is that you just don't have enough time, which is why it's definitely, again, super advantageous to learn everything earlier on. So that when you're going through it second time, it's almost as if it's like a revision for you, if that makes sense.
Yes, me too. I also did tutoring for both my sciences that I chose to study, so that's chemistry and physics. And yeah, I did find it greatly beneficial towards my studies.
Yeah, okay, amazing. So I'll just rattle off some more admin questions. Sorry, guys. The course, I believe our youngest grade is year 8 for junior science. But again, if you're a keen bean, you can always accelerate a year early if you're also accelerating at school, because I believe Karui accelerated chemistry. If you're like Karui, you can always accelerate at Toplogic as well. As to whether the Toplogic courses are purely based on the HSC courses, I think Karui can answer this question about the Olympiad courses that we offer, if you want to take this.
Yeah, so obviously we do offer HSC for chemistry and physics, but we don't, it's not purely based on that. So we obviously have our Olympiad program, and if you don't know, the Olympiad program is kind of like a whole nationwide program. It's pretty prestigious, and if you do well, you can get selected to represent Australia internationally. And that is obviously something that is looked very favorably upon if you're going to apply to any international universities. So I don't know the statistics, but maybe something 30 to 40% of like MIT undergrads have won Olympiad medal. So something like that. Yeah, so we offer Olympiad courses as well. So that's going to be beyond the school curriculum. Yeah, so we're looking for interested students who, will persevere through quite challenging material.
Yeah, amazing. Again, some more admin questions, but as to whether our portal has homework completedness, I don't believe we have that function just yet. But as you might have seen on Kurui's slide, we have a 24/7 Discord group. So you can always notify your tutor there if you haven't completed your homework, or whether they could just check in a couple of days to see. I've also marked a couple people's homeworks from week 2 when it was week 10. So we always do check if you have just submitted late. Yes. I have a question if either of you want to take this. So if the student has accelerated the HSC science course through outside tutoring in year 11, is it suggested for them to continue to repeat the HSC tutoring course in year 12, or should they just practice at home?
Sorry, so is that they've accelerated and they've learnt year 12, year 11 content when it was year 10 at school? Is that?
They might have learnt year 12 in year 11.
Year 12 in, oh,
If
okay.
that person wants to, yeah.
Okay, so once you've learnt year 12 in year 11, you're basically done for your HSC course. So there's not much content that you can progress to afterwards. So see, as an accelerated student, that happened to me as well. So what I would do after that is I chose to learn the year 12 course again at a different tutoring center, just because I thought I needed that extra help and support with my year 12 content, just because I felt like learning it the first time just wasn't enough for me. There were still gaps in my knowledge. So once I finished that year 12 course, I did go onto a different, I did go for year 12 tutoring again at a different place. And also partly because I feel like if you're not having that tutoring outside, my opinion is that you do tend to lose the skills that you've developed over the term. Even though you're doing it at school, sometimes having that tutoring, those tutoring hours really forces you to keep revising that knowledge and have that keep that all in your brain, so you don't have to forget and do all that extra revision when it comes around to exam times. So I would say my personal opinion would be yes, and probably just learn the year 12 course again. Any opposing opinions from Karui? No, okay, perfect.
Very well put, Jenny. Also add that tutoring does give you structure towards your learning, and you can always tell how well you're going, or like how far ahead you are, just by going to tutoring. Yeah. So I have another question. Since Jenny has given such excellent answers so far, we might pass it over to Karui now. Karui, do you think that going to tutoring school will overload on the student and have a negative impact on their learning at school?
In my general experience, honestly, going to tutoring not necessarily will overload the student. Often tutoring is like kind of like communal as well. You go to tutoring with your friends, you work on the content together, and it's also a sort of extra motivation, if you will, to make sure you're actually doing what's necessary. Sometimes you just need that little push, and if you're learning it in a class with the students, with a active, supportive teacher, then honestly, I think that will definitely have a positive impact on the learning at school rather than negative. Of course, if you're going to tutoring for like all of your subjects and that's taking up 20 hours per week, it might you might think about cutting back on really only going to the ones that you really need tutoring for. But definitely tutoring overall, generally, should be positive on your learning.
Thanks, Curry. Jenny, do you have anything to add or?
No, I don't. Yeah, that basically sums it up. I feel like as long as you sort of organize your time well in year 11 and 12, it's definitely manageable with doing tutoring alongside school and also time for like hobbies and extracurriculars if you wish to. So, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. I also have a question. I'm not sure if you two know about this. Um, how do schools select students to participate in Olympiads, and can they do it individually at Toplogic?
So schools don't really select students to participate in the Olympiads. The Olympiad is basically a nationwide competition. It's kind of like big science. It's kind of like ICAS. You sign up to do it. And what we do is we prepare students for that exam. So if you can imagine, the exam is incredibly rigorous. It's going to be a 2-hour exam, 120 marks, and it's going to have a whole broad range of chemistry, right? From analytical to quantum chemistry, brought a whole wide variety. And so what we provide is kind of a structured environment for you to really learn everything and get those skills, get that experience to be able to really do well in the exam. So in the exam, that's how they actually select students to participate, right? They'll select the top 24 students to go to a national summer camp. And from those top 24, they'll select 4 more to represent Australia. So it's not the school selecting students themselves, it's students' results and performance that determines, yeah, how they go.
Thank you, Kurui. So I have another question. Which kind of tutoring is better? Do you think group class or one-on-one is better? One-on-one, sorry. Jenny, do you want to take this?
Yep. Okay. So I think this differs from person to person once again. It's really for the student to try out and see what they like better. So from my personal experience, I find that really only ever for English would I consider one-on-one tutoring. For all my other subjects, I did group classes just because I feel like I'm not going to get anything more out of a one-on-one lesson. And the group class allows for sort of more discussion. I can ask my friends for help if I ever need, and there can be that sort of class discussion and that group learning environment going on that also sort of motivates me. So I'd say number one, depends on the person, depends on what you're looking for with tutoring, and number two, it depends on the subject as well. Kurui?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Jenny said. So really, I would personally, again, only consider like one-on-one for English just because it's incredibly tailored. Like everyone has their own unique essay and you might need help on that. For science, group classes, in my opinion, are definitely superior. Not only do you have your friends, you're learning it together, you can ask each other questions, and in break time, you can talk to each other, things like that, right?
Yeah, excellent. So our general consensus is we would only really consider one-on-ones for, I wouldn't even say for junior English. I think only for senior English, because group class tutoring, not a lot of people know this, but you do develop your skills as a group. It's a learning community. And I find that especially for junior students, you grow more with other people because you can see how the rate that other people are growing. You feel supported by your class because you do make friends. And at that point, it isn't really necessary to kind of get your essays even looked at privately just because you're focused on building skill. And I think this does also apply for junior science. Yes. Um, I have another question about, okay, how long is each class? I think it's currently, I believe, 2 hours long per class. And for our tutors, how many tutoring hours did you do every week?
Okay, so in year 12, I think I did around maybe 10 hours, give or take. The subjects I did tutoring for was chemistry, physics, only 4-unit maths and English. And I believe if you add those numbers up, it should be around 10, probably a little bit less, if I'm being honest, but yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I did 4. I think you'll find a whole range. So basically, usually people go like, what do they need tutoring for? So you'll find definitely a range, right? So I did 4 chem biz.
Yeah, excellent. Personally, I think I did 6. So we have a whole range here. I'm in the middle of Kurui and Jenny. Excellent. Okay. So I think another question for Kurui, because you seem to be our resident expert here. Do you have to sign up for the Olympiads or does your school do it for you?
I think you have to sign up through your school. So definitely ask your science teacher on that. And yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So just ask your school on that. I think in the interest of time, we might pause there just to wrap up the webinar. Once again, if you have any further questions past this webinar, you can always go to our website, toplogic.com.au, where you can find our contact details, or you can reach out via WeChat and make sure to sign up for our classes. We really, really look forward to seeing you all in person. Thank you so much, everyone. Do you have any closing thoughts, Kuru or Jenny?
Not much from me. Just wanted to say thank you guys for attending. You've been an amazing audience. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you guys for attending. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice night, everyone.